Welcome back, everyone. It is middays. We are live in the Element Wealth Studio. The afternoon portion is now with you on this
Hump Day.
It's our pleasure to welcome now Congressman Michael Guest. He represents, of course, Mississippi's 3rd Congressional District. Congressman, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, Gerard, great to talk to you again.
All right, so give us the skinny. We're watching, been talking about this morning. You got a bill that came over for the Senate to put together a budget package and hopefully pass something through both houses, send it to the president for signature. It includes extension or perhaps making permanent the Trump tax cuts. It's our understanding the president's been working the phones to persuade some of your colleagues in the House there to get on board that maybe have some concerns.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and I think the president has been successful. That bill is right now supposed to hit the floor late this afternoon.
Okay.
The concerns around that bill, Gerard, is the House worked extremely hard to pass our budget instructions. We included in there what we thought was very targeted spending for the border, for some immigration reform, and for the military. We tried to, as much as possible, offset the tax cuts with cuts in spending. We put in there the budget resolution that passed the House originally, a $1.5 to $2 trillion cut. We had a lower debt ceiling to try to keep spending under control. And so we worked extremely hard putting together what we thought was a great blueprint. We sent it over to the Senate. The Senate got it, and the Senate said, well, what we're going to do is instead of marrying up what we want to do with the House, we're going to send some instructions back that says the House can continue to work on those increase in savings, but we're going to pass a budget resolution that's going to spend more money. That's only going to have $4 billion in savings versus a $1.5 to $2 trillion and a higher debt ceiling. And so, as you can imagine, that has caused some concern with House members and the fact that the Senate would not agree to the plan that we had worked so hard on, that the numbers were so skewed, particularly in the savings portion of the budget resolution. And so that is what has caused this to kind of slow down this week. But the president has assured all members of the House that when the final package comes out, that it's going to look much closer to what the House is asking for versus the language put in by the Senate.
Okay.
And so that has caused some people who had concerns now to come back around. But this is the first step to unlock the process. We've got to make sure that we match up and we pass the same legislation that passed out of the Senate. And it is very likely that legislation will pass later today.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that update. That's good. That's good information there. So, I thought it was almost a joke, Congressman, when I saw the Senate's measure had a $4 billion floor on spending adjustments, and just to once again clarify for our audience, we're talking about over 10 years. These budget packages, all these measures that deal with financial aspects of government spending and also revenue, they're always scored over a 10-year period, is the way the CBO does. It's also the way the Senate parliamentarian scores it to consider it for eligibility to pass through simple majority. But $4 billion, that's nothing over 10 years.
Yeah. That's right. That is nothing but a rounding error in the federal government over a 10-year window. And so we, as conservatives in the House, we were disappointed that the Senate would not commit to more savings because what we don't want to do is we don't want to continue to overload debt. We don't want to continue to increase borrowing as we look to extend the tax cuts. We want it as much as possible to make sure that they're paid for either through spending cuts or through what we believe will be future growth in the economy. And that's why we were so adamant that we put in there what we thought were reasonable numbers that actually people could look at it and understand. And the Senate pulled all those numbers out and, again, put that very low-ball figure in the number that they sent back. And so that is the reason this has kind of been held up over the last couple of days is because of what the Senate sent back to us over the weekend.
Okay. Well, do you think we'll get a deal that will get to the president's desk this month? I heard, I think it may have been Senator Cornyn. It could have been Senator Thune even said it, kind of maybe a June time frame, and that was rather disconcerting.
The Speaker's timeline is if we can get the budget resolution, if we can get it passed and sent to the president this week, that even though we're going to be out next week, the week leading up to Easter, that the committees of jurisdiction will begin writing up those spending increases and the spending cuts in hopes that as we move into early next month in May when we're here, that we can either get a bill completely across the finish line or that we can make great progress during the 3 months that we're going to be here in the month of May. And so that is the Speaker's timeline. It is somewhat ambitious, but he hopes to have something out of the House by end of May, sending it over to the Senate in June, where they have a much more lengthy process that they have to go through procedurally to get the bill on the floor and to get the votes that they need.
All right, let's talk about the balance of power. So we just had special elections in Florida, retained both of those seats. So where do we stand now with a difference of 9? Do I have that right? That we could lose 4?
We have actually a 4-vote majority right now.
Okay.
So we can lose 4 votes and still pass legislation with the 2 pickups in Florida. And look, the thing about those 2 seats is, in those both of those congressional districts, we were outspent in one district 10-1, being the Democrats dumped $10 million into a race that Republicans spent $1 million. In the other race, it was a 7-1 difference, and we still won both of those seats by roughly 15 points.
Wow.
And so the Democrats were really trying to, I think, make a push to try to make those numbers much closer or maybe pull off an upset. They were unsuccessful in doing so. And I think it just goes to show, that the president and that this administration is still extremely popular. People, I think, trust the president. They trust the president that he's going to make the right decisions for the country. And they're willing to kind of walk with the president, particularly along, what we've seen over the last week or so with the tariff situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. And talk about that. We got about 3 minutes till the break, and if you can hang around, we can keep talking on the other side. But the tariffs, of course, that's been front and center in Washington. The president announcing his strategy, his plans last Wednesday there at the White House on the lawn. And, the reaction's been somewhat mixed, even among Republicans. The White House reports some 70 countries have reached out to negotiate deals. What are your thoughts at this point?
I think the president, is using the tariffs to try to renegotiate a lot of the trade deals that we've seen. And look, the markets have reacted negatively. I see the markets are back up today, but since then, we've seen just a huge loss in the financial markets. But as long as these trade disputes, these tariffs, as long as they are short-term, Gerard, somewhere between 60 to 90 days, and we're able to renegotiate more favorable trade terms with many of these countries, I think what we're going through right now would be something that the American people, when we get to the other side, will say, well, it was worth that short-term pain because the markets have recovered, the price of goods have gone back down. I think it becomes problematic if this becomes a long-term trade war. If we get into the situation to where, 3, 4, 5, 6 months from now, that many of these tariffs are still in place, that Americans then really begin to feel it in their pocketbook, having to pay our higher cost every time that they go out to purchase goods and services. I think at that point, that's when you're going to start seeing or hearing more feedback from the rank and file American public.
I think you're exactly right. I think everybody is willing to make some sacrifices to try to reset this situation and eliminate these disparities. But if it endures, it becomes a problem for a lot of Americans, and it becomes a political problem. We got a break. Can you hang around? Keep talking?
Yes, sir. I would love to. Thank you.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We're visiting with Congressman Michael Guest. So the congressman just informed us that he expects that they'll be working out more details on the framework of a budget package. And so you were talking about just the willingness of the American public to just be patient. I think we'd have to also agree, Congressman, that also applies to getting the Trump tax cuts extended or hopefully made permanent. Clarity there would be huge for our economy, because right now there's still concern about that.
You're right. I think, Gerard, that if we get to this summer, if Congress can extend the tax cuts permanently and maybe even expand some of those cuts. I mean, the president has campaigned on no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and so there's some other additional tax incentives that we want to look to try to see if we can find a way to include those in the package that we're going to ultimately put forward. That as you begin to roll back the tariffs that the president has put in place, I mean, I think you could see an incredible explosion within the economy. And I think that, what we've seen is a huge market overreaction. I see now as we're speaking, it looks like the Dow's up 1,400 points.
Let me interrupt you there, Congressman. That's because, Rhino, check us out on this. On the television and studio here, it says that the president has announced a 90-day pause on tariffs. That's why the markets are going crazy right now. That's on the channel right now in the studio. Rhino shaking his head. So, but remember, this happened a couple of days ago, and it turned out to be fake news. That's why the markets ran up and then closed down.
Oh, wait, the markets were up and then they were back down.
2,000 points in about 3 hours. They swung. So, but this looks real. I mean, this is being reported. I'm watching the reporters on Fox Business. They're all on their phones, reading the notifications.
So as we're on right now,
exactly,
breaking news.
That's happening right now.
White House with Trump announcing a pause.
Yeah.
And look, this just goes to show, that the president, he has the best interests of the American people at heart. He wants to see our economy grow. He wants to see Americans prosper. And so if the president, if this information it is true, which I agree, it does appear from what I'm also seeing on television right here, that the president is listening to economists. He's listening to those people around him to make sure that he's not doing something long-term that has a negative impact on the economy. And it does give them additional time to go back to these countries that he was going to impose a reciprocal tariffs on, try to have the ability, that 90 days to negotiate, to make sure that in some of these cases that we can find that soft spot, that middle ground that the president is looking for.
Yeah, and look, we still have a problem to solve. I think we would all agree on that. And you have to applaud the president for making it an issue, because in the past it just never gotten any attention. I mean, the Biden administration, the Democrats, at one time, going back even to the 90s, of course, right there in the House floor, Speaker Nancy Pelosi even went to the well to talk about the trade disparity. Like, where are they today, Congressman? They have short memories.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, we've seen so many countries take advantage of us economically by imposing heightened tariffs on American goods, but yet then we impose no or little tariffs on the goods that they send into our country. And the president wants a level playing field. Look, and I believe, and I know you believe, Gerard, that with a level playing field, that Americans can compete globally with any country on the face of the earth.
Oh, heck yeah.
So we've just got to make sure that we have that ability. And look, we also want to make sure we're returning, that we're onshoring back to America some of those crucial jobs that we have allowed over the last several decades to leave America. We got to make sure that, we once again become a country that can manufacture the things that we need. And I think that's what the president is looking at doing. He's a businessman at heart. He wants to see this economy grow. He wants to see Americans prosper. And so, the last thing the president wants to leave is a legacy of a bad economy and a stock market that has dropped dramatically on his watch.
Yeah. Well, by the way, Rhino just sent me a note. It's a 90-day pause on everybody but China. But still, though, we always knew, I think you'd agree, Congressman, if we get a breakthrough, if we get some positive news, and this is one, okay, so this applies to every country but China. Well, I think what that's telling us is that we're boxing in China. That's the strategy here, and I think that is a wise strategy. What do you think, Congressman?
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, if there's one country that has taken advantage of America far worse than any other country, is China. China has taken advantages of America based on the trade imbalance, based on the fact that, many of their industries are subsidized by their government. They've often been accused of dumping products to try to hurt American companies. We know that they've stolen our technology. And so, I believe that we need to continue to stand up to China. I see China as being the biggest global threat to America. And this president has shown, unlike the last president, that he's willing to stand up to China, and he's not going to allow them to continue to take advantage of our country.
And it's ingrained in their governmental, their social, and their economic systems. They're just corrupt, and they have no regard for human life. That's what makes negotiations so hard with irrational, illogical people.
Well, and I think they have finally met their match. I think you saw President Trump stand up to them during his first term, and now very early in his second term, I think he has shown that he is willing to stand up with them. He's willing to go toe-to-toe. He's willing to put economic penalties on China if they don't treat America fairly.
He just literally posted on his Truth Social account, based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charge to China by the USA to 125%, effective immediately. Wow, that's incredible. We're bringing them to a breaking point, something I'm not sure that anybody else could do, but the president's not standing down here.
No, you're exactly right. One thing we know about the president is, he has no fear. He's going to do what he thinks is in the best interest of the country, and he's not scared to stand up to China. And I think in the long run, we'll see that while cost of some goods may go up, things that we depend on from China, that I think in the long run is going to help restore that trade imbalance. And is going to put America on a stronger place globally than we are right now.
I think you're going to see both American companies and even potentially Chinese companies seek other venues, other locations to make their goods to replace what we're getting from China that's subject to such high tariffs.
I agree. I mean, hopefully much of that manufacturing will return back to the United States. But even if all of it doesn't, if it returns to countries that are more favorable in their trade policies than China, I think the president would have been successful.
Yeah, or just not our adversaries, on the global stage. I'm not worried about Canada and Mexico, for example, seeking to go to war with this country the way I am China and their diabolical schemes. I want to make a couple of suggestions to you as well, and I realize that you guys are trying to get this budget package through, extending the Trump tax cuts, but the president's talked about reducing the corporate income tax rate down to 15%. I wholly support that. Maybe that's something we can take a look at, but I wonder, Congressman, if maybe some sort of reduction of capital gains taxes on shares held in companies, if they make certain level of investment in new manufacturing in this country, either expanding existing or new facilities, maybe you have to hold it for 5 years, investors would. Exempt it from capital gains, because they're going to need capital to build all these factories.
Well, and that's one thing that the president did talk about to some extent when he was on the campaign trail, is he wanted to incentivize businesses to bring jobs back to the United States, to increase manufacturing, to give them tax, whether it be a tax-exempt status or receive some sort of tax benefit for expansion, building new facilities here, employing Americans. And so I think as the Ways and Means Committee begins to write the tax package, I think that's something that they're going to try to include there.
Okay.
And of course, the priority is making the tax cuts permanent,
of course,
which we intend to do, and then trying to see within the framework, how much additional tax relief that we can provide, whether it be to American businesses or to American workers, to honor as many of the campaign promises that President Trump has made.
Agree. Something else that he's talked about, we got to go, but immediate expensing of all the costs associated with construction of existing or expansion of existing factories or new factories. Maybe that's something else.
Yeah, that would be
do.
huge. That would create a boom.
Yeah. Congressman, always good to talk to you, man. Really appreciate it.
Good
Thanks for coming on.
Look forward to seeing your daughter tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking care of her. Appreciate it.